Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact and I can find no risk. This is love, yeah, love. Never known true love before. Seen so many counterfeits that left me on the floor. This is love, yeah, love. All will come to those who wait. Time it cannot know the bounds, and there are don't dictate.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm your host, Xander Gibb, and coming up on today's show, I, along with Tony Losacco we're having such trouble today, not just with the blog talk, but with everything else, too. Just 1 second, we are having a lot of trouble here today. I will be breaking down the interesting news stories of the week with Tony Losacco from The Full Story, who is covering for Ty this week. Oh, yes, indeed. Apologies. We're going to get to the chat room. We will get it open very soon, but we're having trouble with the Blog Talk software just for a change. So just bear with us for 1 minute. Okay, that's the chat room. The chat room looks to be opening. Hopefully we can get back to doing the show now with everything messing up at the beginning. But, you know, as they say, the show must indeed go on. Oh, yes, indeed, it must. Okay, we are getting there, I assure you. Just 1 second, and we will be back with you. Oh, yes, indeed. So as I was saying, Tony Losacco, who is covering for Ty today, is with me from The Full Story. And in part two, Leda Beluche from Girlie Vegan will be joining us to give us her own particular brand of information. Absolutely. More to come in a mere moment. So you can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the show page. Keep scrolling down. It will let you in. It looks like the chat is open now if you want to go there. That's on the show page. If it doesn't let you join in, what you have to do is either join with Facebook or Twitter, and it will let you have your say. You don't have to be in chat to interact in the show. You can call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Or on Twitter, you can also tweet us. My Twitter handle is Xander Gibb, XanderGibb, capital X, capital G. Don't forget the all-important @ symbol. You can also tweet Tony. Yes, Tony is on Twitter. His Twitter handle is FullStory2014, FullStory 2014. And also you can tweet Leda. Her Twitter handle is Girlie Vegan, GirlieVegan. Again, don't forget that all-important @ symbol. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Or you can share in the chat, and we will share that for you, too. Now, there's still time to vote in our poll at xandergibb.com. This week's poll has caused lots of controversy. The question is, man buns, are they sexy or unsightly? Now, I just have to clarify for you. We are talking about the hair variety of buns and not any other pastry or any otherwise. What say you? Go and answer that question on xandergibb.com right now, or give us a call on this subject or absolutely anything you want to get off your chest on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Can I go to bed now, please? Okay, right, back to the show. Tony Losacco is a broadcaster, libertarian, and freethinker with a common sense approach to the issues that matter. Always insisting on the full story. Here from the full story is the fabulous Tony Losacco. Hi, Tony. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you, Xander?
I am fabulous, apart from all the technical difficulties that were going on. Everything broke at the same time. The Blog Talk broke, the chat room broke, the teleprompter broke, and I'm broke. So it's all in good company. How is the weather down on the Florida coast? It's been very bad here with rain. Please tell me you have glorious sunshine.
Yes, it's doing okay in Florida. In fact, I'm pleased that we're not going to get some of the nasty weather that might be headed up by you guys.
Yeah, well, apparently that's not going to happen now because it's gone. There are two weather fronts they've been talking about, apparently. One of them was a Hurricane Joaquin, nothing to do with Joaquin Phoenix. And also another weather front, and I'm not a weather person, so I don't know what that was. Apparently, we narrowly missed the hurricane. But the other weather front, we're kind of getting the tail end of that, apparently. It took me 2.5 hours to get home from work last night, and the rain was so bad you could only kind of like see a couple of cars in front of you. I was all ready to check into a Days Inn and just spend the night there and deal with the consequences the next day. But alas, I did get home, and I am here to tell the story. So this week has been a very interesting week. A gunman opened fire at a college in Oregon on Thursday, killing at least 9 and wounding at least 7. Law enforcement officials are still trying to piece together details of what happened in the community college just outside of Roseburg, a town of 22,000 south of Portland. The gunman, who will not be named on this show for reasons of not wanting to glorify killers, posted several disturbing statements to his social media pages prior. Now, the 26-year-old gunman was killed during the incident, and earlier in the day, Oregon Governor Kate Brown said the shooter was 20 years old. Officials also said they didn't know what motivated the individual. Now, Sheriff John Hanlon, who we've heard a lot about lately with his commentary on various issues, refused to say the gunman's name and said authorities may not release the names of the victims for at least a day or two, pending identification and notification to next of kin. I will not name the shooter, he said. I will not give him credit. He probably saw it prior to this horrific and cowardly act. Now, authorities began receiving 911 calls reporting a shooting at the college, which was holding its first week of classes last week. Law enforcement officials with knowledge of the situation said initial reports indicated that 3 handguns and one long gun were recovered from the scene. Now, during a news conference, President Barack Obama called on Americans to make gun legislation a priority for politicians on both sides of the aisle. He also had the audacity to say people would think he was politicizing the situation, which he clearly was. He said this was a political choice that we make to allow this to happen every few months in America. Now, apparently the gunman had inquired to the victims' religious persuasions and asked if they were Christian. Those who said they were told that they were going to meet their God and then executed with a bullet to the head. Those who said no were shot in the legs. Now, is this a gun control issue or a pupil control issue? Clearly, there does need to be more stringent testing regarding gun ownership, and sadly, those who politicize the situation without offering real solutions are, in my opinion, a big part of the problem. So, I want to know, I know you've posted lots of stuff about this in the last couple of days, Tony. I want to know your initial reaction to another shooting in school. Do you want to go out and ban all guns? Do you want there to be more legislation? What do you want to come from this time?
Well, I am very sickened by everything I've seen on Facebook lately, honestly, Xander, about it. It's almost as disheartening, and I stress the almost, as the shooting itself. I mean, you have people taking bits and chunks if they're pro-gun control or Christian-based or whatever, taking chunks of the story and using it for their own agenda, one way or the other.
For sure.
Pro-gun control people, the gun rights people, and that's all you're seeing is this two-sidedness. In fact, part of what I was trying to do was come up with, and I've spoken about it on your show before, a solution that we could all agree on, something that would help the problem that everybody could come to an agreement on, and we didn't need Congress to pass. And the funny thing is, I got some reaction to the petition already, and some of it was negative. We've spoken before about how if you do not have, how the liberal side tends to be a bit intolerant, right? Well, the petition was basically and still is out there, obviously. I'm trying to get people to sign on to this, to convince the media not to release the names of the shooters and not to put their pictures all over TV. And the reason is very simple. This guy, it's now documented fact, this guy wrote in his writings that he was inspired by the stories of the other shooters and that it was the way to get fame and everything. I'm sure that wasn't the only reason, and I'm not suggesting it's the only reason, but it contributed. So I put a petition of the networks together to try to get them to stop releasing the names. And actually some liberal people who were for gun control objected to that, saying it wouldn't do no good because they attacked it because it wasn't for gun control.
Here's the thing, Tony. You can't. It's an unfortunate thing with this issue that you can't please everybody, and it's very different to get any kind of consensus. But one thing I think that the people are really not addressing here is something that is an enormous issue in these United States, and that's mental illness. And it's poo-pooed and it's kind of looked upon as weird, and people won't admit that they've had mental illness problems in the past. But clearly, mental illness is something that should be taken into consideration when you apply under the Second Amendment to be able to legally own a gun. Now, here's the issue for me. So, you know, on the I get the left and the right mixed up so often, but on the left, they think that, you know, all guns should be taken away, and really, yes, every precaution should be taken, blah blah blah. But on the right, some, you know, we had people on from the NRA and the gun lobby, and you were actually on that show, and we even got them to admit that some changes would possibly make a difference. Yeah. Do you think that including mental health as one of the screening processes in regards to applying for a gun license would make a difference?
Absolutely, and there's a reason why I didn't address that in the petition. In fact, one of the things that the liberals literally attacked my petition on was that doesn't go far enough. What is that going to do? But the reason I didn't address mental illness is because that requires a lot of legislation and funding. And we know that's not likely to happen with our Congress or our president. So I came up with something that we could do, just the average citizen, because some networks don't release them. We're seeing that. Some of the networks are starting to say, we're not going to give this guy the publicity. We don't want to glorify him. But when others are publishing the manifestos, it's crazy. Right.
Clearly, somehow, sorry to interrupt you, but because we know his name. I don't want to know his name. I won't even share his name on the show. And anything that I've shared on social media, I've actually removed his name from. Because if the ideology that he's done is part of the ideology, because I don't think we know the full ideology of why he's done it. If it's to make him famous, then we're kind of putting it in his hands if we use his name.
Exactly, and see, the funny thing is, I didn't expect. I thought I had come up with a petition that everybody could agree on, whether you were pro-gun rights or anti-gun rights. Let's hold the media accountable to their part in this. That they're inspiring it by making these people celebrities like Beyonce or something, essentially, you know. And I thought everybody could agree, and I was surprised that it got opposition. And the reason it got up. Can you hear me okay, Xander?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can hear you, Tony.
Okay. So the reason it got opposition was because people want that information to twist it to their one-sided argument. They're either in the pro-gun lobby
or the
anti-gun lobby, and something that gives a different solution that's neither, they found threatening. And I found that, like, amazing. I mean, in my view, and I put it on the petition, the blood of the next innocent shooting victims is in the hands of the media. And the blood of the next victim is on their hands.
Yeah. I agree with you to an extent. I totally agree with you. But I want to talk for a bit about. Now, I don't want to turn this into an Obama bashing session. But I want to talk a little bit about his response to this, because I actually sat there and watched his speech, and I really wanted to slap him when he said, people will say that I'm politicizing this situation. Well, that's exactly what you did. He jumped on this before the bodies were cold, as he's done in every case. You know, I agree with him. Something needs to change, but it's like saying, something needs to change, something needs to change, but then offering nothing tangible with regards to what would be a good way forward to change. So let's talk about President Obama. Let's be polite. Let's give him his official title.
I'm going to defend the president on this for once. And
wow,
let me tell you
where's
what
that
I'm
mute button?
And I'll tell you why I'm going to defend President Obama on this.
Right.
The pro-gun rights people were doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, and that's what's disgusting. Like I said, the Facebook feed today was filled with both sides politicizing it and tearing it apart. Because the pro-gun people did the very same thing that Obama did before any details were in. Oh, that was a gun-free zone, and if there was an armed person there to defend them, they wouldn't have been shot. We need more guns. So what he did was wrong, but he is not the only one that did it. Both sides
but
did
that doesn't make it right,
before the details were in. No, it does not make it right. And go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, it shouldn't be politicized. That goes back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
There's certain things we don't need to know. What's the difference whether the guy was a jihadist, whether he was a disgruntled employee, a former student, whether he was a racist or not? They're all
right. It
lunatics.
doesn't change his act,
and innocent
does it?
people are getting killed. We don't need to know the name, the identity, or the photo.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Tony. Do you think it matters whether the gun was legal? You know, it's come to light that the guns were legal. Apparently, he had 21.
Yes.
I mean, why does anybody need 21 weapons? That's something that kind of jumps into my mind. But do you think it makes a difference whether the gun was legal or not?
Well, and I hate to talk about this but the details are out there now anyway. You know, I'm for not releasing the details, obviously. But since they're out there already, I will state that it shows background checks do nothing. It's empty talk on the politicians. They're sidelining, like you said, the mental health issue. If you want a real difference, it's not the criminals that commit these crimes. It's deranged people. It could be you or me one day going in. You know, I'm not saying, you know, it could be any one of us.
You know, I have a certificate to say that I'm not deranged. So there you go.
it could be anybody that snaps or has any history of mental illness.
You're absolutely right.
And
you're absolutely right.
That's the problem. So the only way to do this actually.
And any legislation that's brought in is not going to. You will never ever prevent any gun violence by any method of legislation, and here's why. Because it's like these people that go for jobs and they have to have a police check to have that job. The police checks only actually work for what they can find out about you, and they can only find out what you've done in the past with regards to checks for gun licensing. They can't find out what you might do in the future. But here's for me why it's important. Why the only reason it makes a difference about whether the gun was legal or not. Now, there's all this talk of legislation, and yes, I do think that things needed to be done to protect the public. But what if that gun had been one he'd either bought on the black market or stolen from somebody else? How would background checks have made a difference if he'd stolen the gun? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. Now, I think that there's some things that need to not happen in order to move forward with a real solution. The first thing I've said is I'll repeat it again, is the media needs to not report the names. But the next thing that needs to happen is the gun rights people have a point. These gun-free zones don't do anything to stop a shooter.
Right.
The only thing it does is keep people from I mean, this whole gun-free zone thing, we have to get rid of that concept because that does not do anything. However, it needs to be taken further. Somebody had an excellent idea, which I would support legislation like this. Never mind a criminal background check. Let's forget about a criminal background check. Let's do a mental health screening and have somebody have to, like, if I apply to be a licensed psychologist or doctor or something, I have to go before a board who grants me the license. Well,
right.
That's what anybody that would be a good idea to do with guns. And yes, that's gun control. Yes, it's gun control. So the people that are for the Second Amendment completely can hate me for that. But I think it's a good idea that you should require them to get a psychiatric evaluation, and they have to appear before a board who either approves it or doesn't. And then if they have mental illness or crime or drugs, and it comes up, just like with me working with kids, I have to get a background screening every 2 years. It should be the case with people with guns, you know? And I understand that that's controlling guns. However, here's the other side of that. Our Constitution, and this is the libertarian in me speaking, is the Constitution. There is a right way to do that, and there is a wrong way to do that. And unfortunately, our founding fathers wrote a document for the weapons at the times, which was the right to bear arms. They didn't put an asterisk beside it. They didn't put in parentheses. They said it is the right to bear arms. So constitutionally, we can't do what I'm proposing unless we change the Constitution. But that's why we have an amendment process. Let's change the Constitution.
I want to stop you there for a second because there is a valid argument that says at the time, you see, some people think that the Constitution is set in stone, and some people believe that it was meant to be a working document. Now, when the Second Amendment was written, the most lethal weapon around was a musket. Now, today there are automatic weapons that can release up to 12 bullets with one squeeze of the trigger. Now, I have an issue, and a lot of people listening to the show will disagree with me, and I really don't care, but why does if I go out tomorrow and want to buy a gun for my own protection, okay, that's fair enough. I think that if people feel they need that, okay, that's fine. But why does anybody need an automatic weapon, Tony?
I agree with you, Xander, but I do hold firm to what I was saying. The Constitution is the Constitution. You can't circumvent a document that guarantees our rights. Now, when everybody decided that it was okay to make, let's take prohibition as the perfect example. Okay, in the turn of the century, you had the suffragists, the suffragettes, and they were the big pushers for prohibition.
I have all of
what
their
did
records.
They do? But what did they do to do that? They changed. They got the Constitution amended to prohibit alcohol, and they did it the right way, and it passed because everybody agreed, that was the evil of the day. So, and then later on, when they realized, this was a really bad idea, they passed another amendment to repeal it. The Constitution was meant as a flexible document, but it was meant to be used in the right way with the amendment process. You can't create laws that violate your form and your system of government when the form and system of government has a process. So if guns are the big issue with the weapons today, then we need to have a referendum and a constitutional amendment passed to say the right to bear arms includes A, B, C, but not this. Because the way the document stands, it's very clear.
Well, you see, there are some things I totally agree with the president on, and other things I vehemently disagree with him on. And I would have had more respect for him. He's had nearly 8 years in office, and during that time, he's done backdoor deals, and that's what bothers me. If you do something and make changes constitutionally, I'm more than happy to support them. I might not agree with them, but to me that's a lot better than going through the back door. But before we move on from this, I really want to just ask you something, Tony. I know you're burning to make a comment, but one thing we were discussing on Friday in the office was, and one of my colleagues is like myself, considers himself to be a Christian. He said to me, Xander, if a man had a gun in your face and was going to shoot you, if you said, yes, I am a Christian, would you say, yes, I am a Christian? And to be honest, I couldn't answer that. No, I would never deny, I would never deny my faith. I would never deny God. But then the question comes into my mind, would God want me to stand up and say, yes, I'm a Christian and get shot in the head? Or would God want me to say, no, absolutely not, and still be able to go on and do some more good works, which is a real dilemma. But I just want to know what you think about that.
Well, once again, I can't answer the question any more than you can. We don't know what we would do in that situation, honestly.
No,
so I'd love
you're right.
to sit here and say that I would stand up for Jesus Christ and say I'm a Christian and be glorified in heaven. The Bible is very clear theologically, and history is very clear for that matter, that is what the Bible defines. If you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. So if you or I made the wrong choice, if we're Christians, we're going to be in trouble. However, I can't say that I would make the right choice at that time.
But I don't think God is that shallow. I really don't. I think although the Bible is supposed to be our guide to living, really it's actually down to interpretation. And I've always thought that the idea is to read the Bible, to pray and meditate upon it, and then have your own response to what that says.
But let me just say something really quick on that topic, Xander. I wanna say I smell a rat. I smell a rat with that story. Those are unconfirmed reports, and we've had a lot of the whole thing from the religious right and the fundamentalists were being persecuted.
Right.
Those are not confirmed reports, and I smell a rat. I'm not saying that it's not true, but I think we have to be very careful until all the facts come out as to what the motivations are, and that might be an example of a particular side, like I was talking about, twisting it to their own agenda. We don't know that religion had anything to do with this in any way, shape, or form yet. I mean, it's too early to tell. The facts aren't out.
Absolutely, but you're very much like me, Tony, aren't you? You're as critical of both sides of the aisle, and you're as critical of both sides of any subject matter, whether it's something you held allegiance with or not. You're just as critical, and I'm the same, and I think that's probably why we are good friends.
Actually, Xander, if the American people want to make me dictator for life, I will solve our problems within my first day in office. I will round up all the liberal extremists, all the conservative extremists, find them every gun that is available to them, not deny anyone the right to bear arms, and lock them in a room together. That would be my solution to move the country forward.
Which is a great point to move on from today. Don't forget you can call us 347-884-9061 if you'd like to weigh in on any of the topics we're talking. You can also, in part two, we have Leda Beluche from Girlie Vegan coming to talk to us about various things. What have you brought for us today, Tony? What story has really stood out for you? Obviously over and above the recent shooting.
Okay, well, I'm gonna mention two actually. One I'll be really quick about. There was an instance in my county, Pasco County, where the sheriffs arrested somebody, an adult male, for having a photo of an underage nude child on his phone. Now, here's the catch. He did not solicit it. There's no proof that he sent her any pics. She could have just got his phone number and randomly sent it to him. So I think that these laws are starting to be harmful to people. We're so obsessed with protecting children. I mean, the poor guy could have been sent that from a disgruntled student, or anybody. But he was arrested for having the photo of her on his phone.
Right.
And so I think that we really need to take a look at these surveillance and abuse laws very clearly, and how they're actually victimizing people and infringing on some civil liberties. I mean, anybody can send anything to your phone.
I know. And let me ask you this, Tony. Did you know that if a minor sends a picture of themselves naked to another minor or even an adult, they can be charged with distributing child porn?
Yeah,
Did you know that?
Actually, there's an instance where a 17-year-old was charged as an adult for distributing for him and his girlfriend when they were minors, sending sex pictures of each other naked, which is totally ridiculous. And that's my point. These laws have gotten out of control. We go on a pendulum in this country, and we never find a happy balance. We go from one extreme to the other extreme, back and forth, and now these laws are starting to hurt people. That kid is going to spend the rest of his life tried as an adult and labeled a sexual predator for being a 16-year-old kid, you know?
I definitely think that's a worry, and it kind of brings to mind for me times when I've seen some things in the media before where an adult has done something with a minor when the minor has purported that they are of age, but they've still prosecuted the adult, because now in America you have to check ID to be able to have relations with any individual to be sure that they are of age. Now, I know that most people should be sensible, but when young people are dressing like they're 25 and 30, how is one supposed to see beyond that?
And that's part of the problem with it. Now, I do have a very juicy story for you, Xander. Are you familiar with the woman who blinded herself in that story in the New York Post?
I did see something about it this week, yes.
Okay. Well, this woman, okay, and it was in the New York Post this week. She blinded herself because she states that from when she was the age of 6, she felt she was meant to be born blind. She's 30 years old now. She suffers from a mental illness. We were talking about mental illness earlier, called body integrity identity disorder, that causes able-bodied people to feel they strongly desire a disability. And she says, quote, "I really feel that this is the way I was supposed to be born, that I should have been blind from birth." So with the help of her psychologist, he assisted her in dumping pool cleaner into her eye to permanently blind her. No, this man should be jailed if not lose his license. Yes.
Well, why have they not done that? Well, let me stop you 1 second, because there's a caller. I want to take this call. Let's just bring them on very quickly. Hi there, you're live on Xandermonium. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from North Dakota.
Hello. What's your name?
North Dakota.
Hello. My name's Gary, by the way.
Hi, Gary. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I am fabulous. What point would you like to make? What would you like to share with us today?
Well, I talked about gun control. I just typed a thing in their Facebook page. I'd like to talk about it there, but we're talking about the school shooting.
Yes, we were in the first segment. What's your opinion on that topic?
On that topic, well, I'm pro-gun. I own a lot of guns myself, and it isn't really, this gun control stuff isn't really so much about controlling crime or stopping. It's stopping these shooting events. These gun-free zones is where they happen basically anyway. These mass shooting, but it's about controlling the populace, and you cannot control the populace if we're heavily armed. This is what most governments do. They always come on, like Obama. They talk soft and like they love you and listen. We just want you safe. So if you just surrender your rights, you'll be safer. But it's really, when that happens, it's the total opposite happens. We become a lot less safe. Then we have fear.
Let me stop you for a second, Gary. I want to just ask you, if it came to pass from the 1st of January next year that those gun owners that owned guns would have to be screened for their mental health, number one, would you comply? And number two, would you feel that was appropriate?
No, I don't feel that's appropriate because I know how the government operates in that regard. What they do is they'll make everything a mental illness. Their objective is eventually, I'm right, their objective is eventually confiscate. So they'll turn anything into a mental illness. You know how that works? They'll just go way beyond the realms of true mental illness.
Now some people would kind of think that that's a little bit far-fetched, but in other countries when there's been a coup, they've actually taken all of the guns from the populace before they've done that. Is that not right?
That's true.
So it's not particularly as far-fetched as some people might think.
Well, I think it is, really, because it's, like I said, with gun control, anything, the left is going to do anything they can. It's called deception. I know liberals like the back of my hand, and they'll do anything they can to confiscate or whatever they can do. They aren't going to be able to confiscate all of them anyway, but they're going to make it tougher and tougher to buy them.
You obviously
Xander, may I jump in for a moment?
You can.
What?
You're obviously referencing to some liberals, though not all, aren't you, Gary?
What's that now?
Well, you're talking about some liberals, because we can't generalize and say that every single liberal is anti-gun, because I know some liberals that have guns and are pro-gun. So we are talking about some liberals, not all.
Not all, but there's quite a few that are anti-gun. The majority, vast majority are.
Absolutely.
It's because they support big government. That's what it's about. I mean, I support I support freedom. That's the side I'm on. I said, leave the people alone. I don't want the government in my life. So,
Tony,
Xander, may I jump in?
You may. Go on.
Well, I just wanted to say two things. One, Gary, I absolutely agree with you on the gun-free zones. It's BS, and it's a lie. It just costs more lives than it's worth. Secondly, as far as the gun confiscation thing goes, it was very interesting. You have a very valid point, because as much as I'd like to see, as I've said, background screenings for mental illness, there was CNN. I was watching CNN the other day, and the anchor was a female anchor. I wish I could recall her name. She slipped at one point, and she talked about complete gun confiscation. And it was, I was like right on TV, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like she was talking about everything else, and then it just flipped within a second about how she was for the total confiscation. And that is the real agenda when they talk, unfortunately, which is why I was proposing something everybody could do now, which is pressure the media not to release their name without being pro or anti-gun control. And it's very interesting that I got the opposition, not from conservatives like you, but from liberals, were outraged about that because it didn't go far enough.
I wonder why.
That's right. That's right. You just nailed it on the head. Yeah, you know. But anyway, I got to run here, guys. But it's been Xander's a good friend of mine. I've been friends with Facebook on him, and we talk to each other every once in a while.
Absolutely.
I agree, but he's a nice guy, by the way. So
thank you very much for that endorsement, Gary. I hope you'll call us again sometime. Have a fabulous weekend.
You bet.
Absolutely.
You take care. You bet.
You too. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.
You bet. Welcome. Bye bye now.
Bye bye. So that's kind of another perspective on it. But I want to just for the last couple of minutes before we go to our guest that's coming on, what do you think should happen to professionals, Tony, that do this kind of thing, i.e., that aid individuals to self-harm?
Well, you know what the interesting aspect of the story, Xander, is it said nothing about what happened to him or what his motivation for helping her was as a professional. I think personally he should be arrested for that, just like with assisted suicide. And if not, he should at a minimum lose his professional license.
Oh, for sure.
But it also brings another issue into question. Does she not have that right? Could she not have been born that way? Because if we can do that, if we could say that about sex or gender identity, let me correct myself before I get a whole lot of hate mail. If we can say that about gender identity, I was meant to be a woman, but I'm trapped in a man's body. Can people not say, well, I was meant to be born blind. I was meant not to have a leg. I was meant to be a hippopotamus. I was meant to be a cat. So where do you draw the line on that? And we can't, as our initial reaction to an article like that is, how did somebody allow this to happen? But she's basically saying the same thing transgender people are saying. I was born the wrong way. I should have been born blind. That's no different than saying I was born a male, but I should have been a female, or I was born a female, but should have been a male. And this really brings the argument into another perspective.
Absolutely. And, you know, some people have suggested that being trans is indeed gender dysphoria is a mental illness. I've actually heard mental health professionals suggest that being gay is also a mental illness. So a good proportion of us are obviously mentally ill. But the argument with regards to trans people saying that if they want to mutilate their bodies so much to be different, then surely that is indicative of mental illness. Now, I know some people that are trans. I know some people that are fully transitioned, and you couldn't wish to meet a nicer or probably more sane person, and probably a more sane than you or I, because they're actually happy. So where do we draw the line, Tony?
Well, actually, I have a question for you on that, Xander. What is the difference? This woman was assisted by a medical professional, apparently, in pouring pool cleaner into her eyes to blind herself. So she was assisted by a professional. They took her to the hospital afterwards, and she got her desire. She's legally blind now. What is the difference between that and somebody going to a surgeon to alter their body and their anatomy? What is the real difference? I mean, we can't have a double standard about it then.
I don't know if that's something I can answer without having the wrath of the whole trans community on my back. But I definitely do see the point. That you're making. Some things are kind of seen as more acceptable in society than others, and I think it's definitely food for thought. But I know that when I've worked in the community, if someone has come to me and said, "Hey, Xander, can you help me to do this or that?" and it's something that's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Unorthodox, then I've had to go to my superiors and I've had to tell them what has occurred, because if I didn't, and they didn't, and they did something, I would have a level of culpability in that.
And see, I don't want to give people a misleading impression. As a libertarian, first of all, I am completely for anybody's right to do a transformation with their gender and have a surgery, and that I'm not against transgendered people in any way in the legal sense. But what I'm saying is, neither am I against this woman if she made a legitimate decision. People's bodies are their own, whether it's a tattoo or anything. Now, I am against the professional that assisted her. See, that's what I'm against.
Okay,
is somebody aiding and abetting.
Absolutely. I've got to stop you there, Tony, because we've gone over time with that segment, and our next guest is in the virtual green room. So without further ado, we will bring her on. So Leda Beluche is an energy healer and founder of GirlieVegan.com, a one-stop shop where people can educate themselves on how to heal themselves through food, energy, and healing, and have the support for it. So without further ado, let's welcome back to the show the fabulous Leda Beluche. Hi, Leda. Welcome back to the show. You're live with myself and Tony on Xandermonium. How you doing?
Hi, Xander, and hi, Tony. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Yay! That's an excellent answer.
I want to carry on a little bit, if you're cool with that, about a couple of topics we've been discussing in the show already today. We were just talking about a mental health professional that assisted a woman to blind herself with pool cleaner because the patient, felt that she should have been born blind from birth. And Tony was highlighting that some might see that this is no different from a trans person saying that I was indeed born the wrong sex, so I'm going to alter that. What's your response to all of this? Let's take it from the point of view of first of all, with regards to this health worker. Well, what's your response to this?
Well, there's several components here. Mental health is definitely something to really look into. There are people that have problems. I have a good friend who owns a mental institution upstate, and she's a client, so I constantly hear a lot of things that are going on. But at the end of the day, let's say in this case, with this lady that wanted to be blind, if she felt she wanted to be blind, that's her choice. So at that point, if she chooses to be blind, that's her choice. And then If she regrets it later, that's on her. And I think this is where it all comes down in life. It's really about choices we make and what made her have that choice, right?
Right. But should the mental health professional be assisting her with that is what we're kind of trying to ascertain.
Well, I mean, but for me, it's like who are we to say someone's mentally ill just because they choose to want to be blind? I mean, for us, it sounds crazy. For me, maybe for someone else, maybe. But maybe that's something she wanted all her life. But then again, there are boundaries for everything too, right?
I'm not saying it's for us to kind of diagnose whether people are mentally ill, but this woman was already receiving treatment, and the person that was treating her assisted her with this. And so I don't personally think it's any, you know, I mean, some people might think I'm a bit of a loony because of some of the things that I say and do, but, you know, I have a certificate to say that I'm not. But the point is, should a mental health worker, absolutely, it's those that are not insane that you have to worry about. Should a mental health worker be assisting individuals with harming themselves? It's kind of like like
I understand, a patient
diagnosed with mental illness said, I'm going to slit my wrist. Will you hold the razor blade? And you work for the local authority, and you're the person advising them. There's a conflict there for me.
No, absolutely. Now I understand. Sorry, I didn't know that this person was already going through sessions and stuff. Well, that's like my clients that come. I have all sorts of different clients, right? So you and like my friend who owns Arcadia Upstate, it's the same way. For example, when a lot of her patients, she tells me all the time, they would go to her. They have history of being violent, doing really intense things, but while under her care, it was her choice to give them love. It was her choice to give them healthy food and treat them like a family member and give them love. Half the time, people just need love. They need someone to listen to them, someone to support them, and someone to give them love. So the person that was treating her, it's their choice, really, because if someone's coming to you for help, now you have the choice of either letting them be aware that they're making a choice and what choices they're choosing to make, or give their proper advice. So, you know, in this case, if this person assisted them, this lady to be blind, I would also question the person assisting, because if someone comes to me for help, I do the best to, like, listen to them, give them options, and support them. But at the same time, there's a boundary with the support, because if I know for a fact if someone's telling me they want to commit suicide, I'm not going to go ahead and assist them on the suicide, because for me, now I know there's something deeper there, correct? So it's like you have to guide them and you have to say, you know what, this is against my judgment. I don't think this is proper. And either you stop treating them and recommend them to someone else, or find a proper help for them.
Right.
Now, you did raise a valid point, if I may, and you touched on something that nobody really wants to talk about. I mean, as a perfect example, up until I believe it was the 1950s, homosexuality was considered a disease and a psychiatric disorder.
For sure.
And they're just now debating whether to take gender identity disorder out as we speak. It's still in there technically, and they're refining it and they're debating that. So what exactly is a mental illness and what isn't? We have to be very careful when we label people with mental illness, because basically it's a book that changes every year that a bunch of people on a board sit together and say, oh, this isn't normal, this is an illness. And that's the essence of mental illness. And really we have to guard against that as a society.
And you said that correct. It's all about labels. The government loves to put labels on things that they don't have an answer for. No one can sit here and call someone else crazy or mentally ill, because no one at the end of the day knows what another person is thinking. You can live with someone, you can be married for someone for 40 years. You will never know what they're thinking. You just don't know. So
let's face it, Leda, you're only as sane as you can act. Let's face it. In real terms, there are some real loons out there, and we know some of them, but they act like they're sane in public. It's like these couples that say, we never argue, we never have a disagreement, but who knows what's going on behind closed doors. So I want to move on a little bit from this. I want to ask you about a couple of things. I want to ask you about what you're actually doing with regards to energy healing and what kind of people you work with.
Well, I mean, for those that are not familiar with energy healing is a alternative medicine, which what the healer provides kind of like basically channels energy to heal the person seeking help. So if someone's coming to me with, let's say, an emotional situation, we're able to, using different techniques, whether it's hands-on, which is I place my hands on them to channel this energy, this frequency. At the end of the day, it's really energy, it's frequency, correct? And if not, we do hands-off. I love one of the healing modalities that I use is called reconnective healing, where I don't even place my hand on the client, and it's fabulous, the results that they have. And that just shows the power of frequencies, right? And then, of course, we do distance healing, which is I have a lot of clients from all over the world. I have clients in Germany and France and from all over, and they're not present in the same room as me, and the results are incredible because this is all kind of goes earlier, gun control and all that. At the end of the day, it's all about the energy, the frequency, what you radiate, what you think, and really has an effect on your actions. So
Absolutely.
if you're thinking positive, you're going to make positive actions in your life. But if you're thinking negative, then of course you're going to pick up the gun and shoot someone, because at the end of the day, a gun is an object. Guns don't kill people. People kill
Absolutely.
people. So it's the
Absolutely.
person picking up the gun and pulling the trigger. That's the problem. And why they made that choice, that's the root of the problem. So it's kind of like, that's what energy healing is about. We're here to heal people, to truly, there are a lot of people that, like you said, Xander, they're happy, they're like, you see them at work, they're like, oh, my life is perfect, everything's great, you know, oh my gosh, I live in a beautiful home, I have the perfect husband, the perfect wife, the perfect everything, everything's rosy and perfect, but behind closed doors, they're crying in the bathroom. So it's kind of like we're here to create that balance for people. So healers are here to say, you know, and we're really not supposed to, like, promote, like, oh, don't take pills or anything like that. You know, obviously I always say, you know, if you're going to a medical doctor, follow your rules. But for us, when we're more deep in energy healing, we know that you can just truly change your life by making the choice. You know, it's an action, it's taking responsibility for your actions and your thoughts, right?
Because people don't kind of tend to notice this so much, but there is such a connection between the mental and the physical. When there are issues with your mental health, not to say that you're mentally ill, whether you're depressed, whether you're nervous, whether you're worried, this quite often highlights itself in the physical, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because, well, in energy healing, our belief is we have 4 different bodies. We have the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional bodies. So when one of them is out of balance, this is why your life becomes chaotic. So if you're a little bit off on the mental side, this is why our healing comes in. We can actually balance all 4 bodies so you can really, truly feel in a better state of mind. So therefore, when we balance all 4 bodies, you mentally start thinking better, you spiritually feel better, you physically feel better, and you feel emotionally better. So that's why
it's quite interesting that it's quite interesting you say we have 4 bodies, because that's obviously what's happening when I'm going to get weighed, that I'm weighing all 4 bodies at once. That's why the number is so damn high.
Exactly. There you go. Exactly. But it's
so
true.
where does the energy come from, Leda? That's what I want to get to. Where is the energy coming from?
Well, I'm glad that you said that. This is also, of course, this is where, you know, belief and faith comes in for some people. But researchers are still, you know, doing a lot of work towards this, because one thing is that a lot of researchers are realizing that regardless where the energies come from, they are seeing the different reaction. And even when they do all these, like, you know, research and cases, they can see the difference when someone, just from their energy, when they come in before they get the healing and after the healing. And really the energy comes from everything in between us. You know, this is kind of saying there is no time and space. So the energy is pretty much what's between you and I, even right now. That's energy. That's, because, you know, that's
because we give off energy, and whether that's positive or negative, it's not about just saying, I'm giving you my energy. It's about what you say and do, because that's what That's what adds and subtracts energy from the universe. But I think a lot of people don't see that. If you walk into a room and you're all bubbly and happy and smiley and emitting that positivity, that grows and that spreads. But unfortunately, the same is also true of negative energy. I cannot abide negative people in my life. I have to help them, try and help them turn it around. Because if you don't, it infects you. It really infects you.
Absolutely. It's so true. I always tell people you are responsible for the energy you bring into a room, because the way you think, act, it definitely affects other people. But also, I want to go back to where you're saying the energy, where it comes from, it's frequency. I mean, right now, all of us are talking. People are listening. We are doing whatever we're doing, but we're sitting on a planet. We're in space right now. You know, we're on Earth, which is still a bubble. It's a planet, and we're sitting in space. So I always tell people, think deeper, and I think that's what society doesn't want us to do. They just want to label things once again, and when we go deep and we're thinking outside the box, then we're called crazy, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's kind of like – Go ahead.
Which is an amazing segue. Sorry to interrupt you, but we're a little bit time limited today. But which is an amazing segue into the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about. You know, you're saying we're in the universe and stuff. You tell us about your interest in UFO experiences and if you've had any yourself.
Yes, I am very big in ufology. I love ufology just because a lot of people think it's, oh, my God, aliens like you see on TV, but actually ufology is very spiritual. It's about acknowledging the energy and the frequencies outside of our bodies and outside Earth, and where does it come from, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm actually leading the first the official UFO experiencers meeting at the end of the month, October 28th, at 7:30 at the Players Club. And obviously anybody that wants to attend can, go to my website and email me. But it's for all of these people that have questions, that feel that they've had an experience, that they feel like something happens to them at night when they sleep. Or there have been numerous people, because I do hypnotherapy and I work a lot with the people that have had abductions situations, experiences. And there are people that are driving in the middle of the road. They see a bright light, and all of a sudden, they know that the clock said 3 o'clock, but out of nowhere, time has passed, and it's still the same time, and they're actually somewhere else. So I think there are things to this. Government is fully aware of this, and I think it's a subject that they're afraid to touch. The Russian president is fully aware that's something he's threatening to really disclose, which is ufology, but obviously the United States doesn't want that. But well,
they won't open up Area 41, will they, and let us see what's in there? So let's face it, they have something to hide. I think they're afraid of mass panic, and I think they've known for a long time that there is life out there somewhere.
They're afraid of free energy. If we live off free energy, we wouldn't need the oil, we wouldn't need banks, and that's what they're afraid of. Ufology is about really, a lot of people having experiences, and so that's why I'm doing the support group, to give people a place where it's whatever is said there stays there, and they can really find a way to also find healing through that, because I want people to know they're not alone.
Don't you just know that Tony's coming up with something witty right now about to say about being anally probed?
I wanted to ask a favor of your guest, Xander. I'm actually very interested in, and it's an area that I haven't really had the time to research. If you would, when you get a chance, please friend request me on Facebook, because I'd love some more information on the topic, not on the UFOs, but on energy healing and things, because in the mental health field, one of the things they do is they over-medicate people and they label, and I'm very much against that. That's why I'm into life coaching right now, and it will very much fit in with my life coaching. So I'd love to learn all about that if you friend request me.
Absolutely. I will definitely reach out to you. And like I said, my friend who owns Arcadia Upstate, she has seen the difference just by, using energy healing and love with the patients. It's a big difference. And she said the medications have gone down quite a bit. So there is some things to that.
Love is so much louder, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure is.
Mm-hmm. So tell people, Leda, we're kind of at the end of the show now, but I always feel like we don't have enough time with you, and there's so many more things we could talk about, but I'm sure you'll be back with us very soon. In the meantime, tell people where they can find you. Tell them about your website and tell them where you are on social media.
Definitely find me. My website is girlievegan.com. That's Girlie vegan.com. And all the social media handles are at Girlie Vegan. So definitely keep in touch there because I'll be posting a lot of stuff. The Girlie Vegan show is coming back on very soon at the end of the month. We're waiting for all this retrograde situation to pass by. And we're also doing the Girlie Vegan show, the web-based series. So we have a lot of fun stuff, a lot of fun interviews with a lot of, interesting people, in the field and outside the field. So, I definitely encourage everyone to just, if they want to walk away with something today, it's to definitely learn to take responsibility for their actions and to know that in life, everything's going to be okay. At the end of the day, we're always going to get where we need to be. So
Absolutely.
Just stay positive and really spread love and receive love. Yeah.
For sure. And we will let you know when Girlie Vegan, the Girlie Vegan show is starting again as a radio show. We will give you links to that. But for now, thanks so much, Leda Beluche from Girlie Vegan.
Have a
fabulous weekend, and we will speak to you very soon.
Yay, bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. That was Leda Beluche from the Girlie Vegan Show. Make sure you check her out at www.girlievegan.com, and make sure you check her out on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you so much to my co-host today, Tony Losacco. Tell people where they can find you, Tony.
Well, you can find me on the Full Story, Xander, on Facebook, and all you have to do is type in the full story. I should come up. And that is basically where I'm out of right now. You can also find me on YouTube at the same location, which is The Full Story. And please have your viewers check out my webpage on Facebook, The Full Story. I have a petition right now on there through change.org that everybody can sign. It just takes 2 minutes to please sign it and urge the networks to stop releasing the names and the biographies of these mass shooters. I believe we can make a difference if we pressure the news media as viewers to have them not release that information.
Absolutely. So, and if you want to find Tony as well, go to xandergibb.com/radio, and his links are on the radio page for today. So make sure you go and check out the petition, check him out on social media, and I'm sure Tony will be back with us very soon. Thanks a lot, Tony. Give our love to Kiko.
Thank you for having me, Xander. Have a fabulous
You're welcome.
day.
It's a pleasure, and we hope you have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. That was Tony Losacco from The Full Story. Make sure you check him out on Facebook and Twitter and tell him that Xander sent you. We will be back with you next week. Just a little bit of a heads up. The TV show is starting again soon. We will give you details of that as soon as we know about air dates. In a couple of weeks, in 3 weeks' time, we're having an anniversary show. It will be episode 150, 150 shows, yes, for all of you that said we wouldn't make it. There you go. That's what perseverance does for you. Thank you so much to everyone involved in today's show. Thanks to Tony Losacco. Thanks to Leda Beluche from the Girlie Vegan Show. And most of all, thanks to you for listening. We will see you next week, and I love you all. Bye-bye.
Life, it has been good to me.